Jim. He's dead.
Hello, I'm Stephen Cadwell. Welcome to Improv Autopsy. This is part one of my interview with Adam Bellis. Adam was part of 6 Degrees, one of the first improv groups I was in after moving to Florida. He was also in what was called Gen S at the time at SAC, which was the more experienced of the 2 student groups from which they would pull apprentices on occasion. Adam is a joy to play with. Adam is great at listening and responding, as well as keeping the big picture in his head, so he's able to navigate around what could become scenic pitfalls and help others do the same. I don't want to spoil any more of the interview, so let's get to it. This is part one of Adam Bellis, Improv Autopsy. Well, first of all, Adam, thank you so much for doing this and being a part of the podcast. I appreciate it a great deal.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm a little distanced from the stage these days, so anything that reconnects me, even tangentially, is welcome.
Oh, awesome. Good. A little disheartened that you're distanced from the stage because I have a lot of respect for you as a performer.
Thank you.
You're an amazing improviser, but we'll talk about all that. So what are you doing now, I guess?
You know, my day job is software engineer, working in tech with code and cloud engineering stuff. Very not theatrical. It's artistic in its own way. I'll always fight anyone on that. But it's definitely not getting up in front of people and making people feel things and laugh or cheer or gasp. That I do love that. The closest I get to that is my side project, which is pseudo dormant, but not completely, is History Bluffs, which is started as a podcast. It was basically when the pandemic hit, the group of performers that I was working with at SAC Comedy Lab at the time, they were looking for something we could do in the mediums left to us during the pandemic. So they it was Molly Brennan and Gina Hunter kind of like came up with this idea of History Bluffs, basically 2 truths and a lie, but with a history slant and a game show theme. And we developed it. And then we broadcast like 132 episodes on YouTube. And we're great at performing. We suck at marketing. So we never got a following. But what we did do is in 2024, after we had done a bunch of online things, we said, let's get this on a stage. Let's make 2024 the year that we try to start getting it on stage. And we did through our connections, because a lot of us had started performing again because the pandemic was over. I said with air quotes for
Yes.
the audio listeners. So we did that. We actually did, I think we've done 8 or 9 stage shows of this now. So we actually bring the game show to like a small theater space. We've done it a couple places around Central Florida, around the Orlando area. And it works well. The audiences love it. It's interactive. People have vote paddles, truth, bluff. So that's as close as I get to it. So I think the last show we did was back in August. We probably have some shows coming up, maybe February and March. So that's cool. So it's still like a smattering.
Yeah.
I mean, there were times back in the early 2000s where I was on stage 4 or 5 nights a week.
Yeah.
So it's nothing close to that. But
yeah,
that was wild. Some of those weeks were just so full of stage.
Yeah.
And I loved that because, man, you could iterate over your skill set fast. I mean, granted, improv, every show is different. And then, of course, even the format of the different shows in the same week might be different, but you're still up there, with your flesh and bones and brain, like doing the thing. And you can polish that with fast iterations. Once a month is not enough. Never mind once a fiscal quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's rough because reps are so important to getting better and to, like you said, polishing. There's nothing like being up in front of people to really sort of make that work.
Yeah.
When did you first become aware of improv? When did improv enter your consciousness?
So it was a vague concept when I was it early high school? It was a vague concept in early high school. So I'm a high school graduate of 96. So this goes to, I guess, back to 92 or 93. I was in a 3-act play, and one of my best friends at the time, he was one of the leads with me, and he and I were both kind of quick on our feet. And it was one of those plays that had a play within the play that was being done again and again. So we just got lost on one of the performance nights. And he and I just started improvising. I'm using air quotes again. Like not in the true sense of improv, but like we played together and we accepted each other's offers. And we did that. Just he and I. Everybody else was just like, looking for help. And we climbed this ladder and got everybody back on just because we refused to let go of it and we just kept it moving. And so that was the first time somebody said, wow, you guys really improvised well up there. So the word connected to stagecraft in like 1992. Then nothing for years. Okay. I graduated. I left the state of Maine. That's where I grew up. And I came to Florida and I attended Full Sail University, which at the time was just Full Sail. They weren't even accredited as a university then. I went work for computer animation. One of the course directors there was the course director for the course, what was it, motion? Because you're an animator, you're learning how movement works. And one of their great ideas was to take the whole class to SAC Comedy Lab and watch the people moving on stage, because the nature of improv is it's very exaggerated, especially short form improv. Everybody's trying to be big and very extreme on stage. And this course director knew that. And I wish I could remember the course director's name. That was in 2000, maybe 2001. It could have been 2001, early 2001. So that's when I really learned what improv was. That nailed it. I was like, wow, this is fun. Look at these people having fun. And I miss this because I did a decent amount of theater work in Maine during high school and in community theater afterwards. And I had kind of put that away while I did my college thing. But man, seeing that, and I made connections. I ended up volunteering at the theater later, and years, there's a big story to unravel from that. But that's when it really clicked. I'd say it was like early 2001, maybe late 2000. I don't recall exactly when that course happened, but it was for motion study, for animation.
So were you a theater kid in high school?
I was, yeah. Yeah, theater, music. I played a little piano. I sang in the chorus. Yeah, I've been on stage. My father was a musician on stage. He met my mother. She was in her band. He was in his band. And she picked up had to do with drums. And he said, put those down. That was kind of how they met. So
the rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is history. My sister, she went to Berklee College of Music in Boston. And so she's been in touch with music her whole life. She still plays now. I think she just went to Arizona. She lives in Wyoming. She just went to Arizona to headline at a concert with her band. Fantastic. So yeah, a lot of performance and stage work in my family. I kind of took the theatrical route instead of the music route.
And in high school, other than that mention of improv, there was no improv sort of unit or anything through any of that in high school?
No, nothing formal at all. It was all 1 acts and 3 acts that we would do.
Do you remember the name of the production that you managed to redeem?
Okay, it was either The Mouse That Roared or Play On.
Okay.
I actually want to say it was Play On because Play On was several plays within a play. Yeah, it might have been Play On. I'll have to research that later.
And other than that recognition, that wasn't I guess if there was no outlet, there was one group in Maine that I was aware of at one point that was like seasonal, like a lot of things, I guess, in Maine.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah, up in, I don't know if it was up near Acadia or if it was Bangor.
It could have been, I would say if it was seasonal, it was either the Bar Harbor, Acadia area, or it could have been Freeport. Freeport has always been kind of a lively, and then there's Portland, but Portland is pretty consistent.
But that was probably nowhere near you, or nothing you were looking for at the time, because why would you?
Right. I grew up close to Portland, about 40 minutes away from Portland, but I didn't really connect with the theater scene down there because I was just a little country bumpkin. Portland was the big city.
And Full Sail is what brought you to Florida?
Yeah. When I was looking for a place to go, this was 1998. I was shopping around for colleges, and there were exactly 2 universities or colleges in the country that had computer animation programs, and that was Full Sail and Cogswell Polytech in Sunnyvale, California. How different my life would have been.
Yes, and that's a mouthful as well.
Yeah.
So what's the rest of the story then? So you go and you see the performance at SAC, and you said it kind of clicked for you in terms of what it was and how much fun, but what or when did you say, I'm gonna take the next step? Volunteering, I presume, before classes?
I did, yeah. Because back then, and probably even till today, every intermission at that theater at SAC is, if this looks like fun, you can do it too, or you can volunteer. That's the spiel every intermission. So I had gone back to a show and I had heard the spiel and I thought, hey, I would love to volunteer. And the reason I did is because Full Sail was it's an accelerated program. Like every month they start, every month there's graduations, and the nature of the business of those degree programs at that time was like film and television. Okay, so people graduate, they go to LA or New York or whatever. And I didn't have any friends. They graduated and left. And I was like, it was crickets. And I'm like, where are my friends? I'm like, I'm a friendly guy. Where are my friends? And I thought to myself, wait a minute. When I was in Maine, all of my cool friends were my theater friends. And then I was like, wait a minute, that SAC place. I should go back to SAC and meet theater people. I'm not kidding. That is literally why I went back to SAC. I mean, not just for the entertainment of a show, but I was like, I should hang out with these people. So I was like, yeah, I can volunteer. I've got time. Let's do this. So I'm, ringing up concessions and stuff. Well, it was only a matter of time before they realized that I was an accomplished web developer, even at the time. Like I had started doing websites in '96, pretty much right after high school. And I did it professionally for a couple years before I even moved down to Florida. So the shortcut to the SAC website was hurting. And so I said, hey, let me help out with that. So I did. And my claim to fame is the bouncing SAC balls
Yes.
animation that was there for the longest time. I don't think they have that up there anymore, but it was a Flash movie, a Flash anime. For those of you who are old-ish like me, there was this thing called Flash. It was the only way to animate things on the internet. So I made this cool bouncing ball animation, and I helped Jocelyn Horvath. She was this office manager, stage manager at the time for the theater. And she said, you're a huge help. That's awesome. Can I sponsor you through the class? Level 1? I'm like, yes, you may. So she sponsored me through level 1 and 2 because I was doing volunteer work. I was keeping up with the website and just, I mean, web developers aren't cheap and theaters aren't rich. So
Yeah.
she was very, very gracious for my help with that. And it was a match made in heaven. So yeah, I went through levels 1 and 2 like that. I wasn't volunteering by the time level 3. That was fine. I just laid down some cash, went through all the levels. And then they said, hey, we'd like to invite you to the performing groups. And so by late 2001, I think I was on stage. Yeah, I think it was '01 I got on stage. And that was fun. Man, it was exactly as fun as I thought, maybe more fun.
Do you remember who your cast was when you first started attending shows? Anything about any of those shows stick in your mind?
Yes. So I think the first show I saw was hosted by Simon McDonald. He connected with SAC probably a few years before I did. So I don't remember exactly what he was doing, like as far back as '01 or like in 2000 when I saw that first show, but he hosted the show. And so he had the clipboard or whatever. And I think on stage were Ty and Gina. It wasn't a weekend show because I remember at the time that was Jay Hopkins, Megan White, James Newport, Ryan. Yeah, that was like the weekend cast. And I did see some of those shows, and I was working the concessions for a lot of those shows. Yeah, I think that was a lot of the cast that I remember at the time. Once I started performing, I was performing with folks like Francisco LaBoy. It's funny. Alan Forbes is another name. I still hang out with him today. He's one of my good friends. He didn't come around until '06, but for some reason I always put him back to like the '01, '02, '03 era because there was a lot of like build up like in the mid first decade there. But yeah, Simon, his now wife Sydney she was running the front of the house.
Yep.
For the longest time. Yeah, I'm trying to think of all the other names. There's just cascades of folks that I'm not mentioning right now because I'm spacing.
Was Steve Grogan and Idanya, were they in around then?
Okay, so yeah, Steve was there. Yeah, I was performing with Steve for at least a bit of time before he even met Idanya. I remember him talking about meeting Idanya. They were both working. They were both doing SpongeBob at Universal.
Oh,
They both had the same frame roughly, and they could fit in the thing, the box, the sponge
yeah.
box. That's how they met. And I remember he started talking her up, and I'm like, oh, he likes this lady. And then later on, before you know it, I'm at their wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I still talk to Steve on a regular basis too. So I still talk to as many of these people as I can on a regular basis.
It's interesting because not that you still talk to people. That's great.
Yeah.
But because I came through, I moved to Florida. I think in '01
Mhm.
is when I moved to Florida, and then I didn't connect with SAC for a couple years after that. And when I came through, you all were in Gen S, which is the second at the time was the second performing group. There was
That's
Lab
right.
Rats.
Yep.
That was the first one, and then Gen S was the next one.
Yeah.
And then you'd apprentice and potentially join the ensemble, professional ensemble cast. But coming in that way, it just seems that these are the people that have been here. I would not have guessed that you hadn't been there longer than you had.
Yeah.
Because it seems like you were just the I don't know if we want to call it generation in terms of the SAC movement of stuff, the class. Like you were just one or two classes ahead of me, really,
Right.
going through there. But when you're in, or at least when I was in class, I was less conscious of those student groups and a lot of other things going on in the theater than I was just, okay, I knew Sid from front of house because I was volunteering,
Hmm.
earning my sack bucks to pay for class, and kind of that's where I was
Yeah.
between that and then the rest of my life, was unaware of everything else. And in retrospect, it's just like, oh yeah, I would have thought you guys were there a little bit longer than that, but that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the timeline. I remember Darren Humphrey. I can't not mention Darren Humphrey.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, and Christian Centronowski
Oh,
um,
yes.
would have
Absolutely.
been part of that as well. I'm
Yeah.
sure we're forgetting somebody.
Yeah. I'm sure we're forgetting a dozen solid.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, there's a lot of names. Yeah, Chrissy Keel, she was great. She moved out west, as
yeah,
far as I know. Yeah, there was just a ton of people. Richard Paul was a big presence in there, and he still is
yeah,
to this day. So yeah, all those people definitely shaped me. I could probably write like a good paragraph about every single one of those people and tell you like, these are the great gifts they gave me.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Did you teach improv? Have you taught improv? Do you?
I have, and what's funny is I was never asked to do so by SAC. What happened was, well, so I started working at Full Sail right out of graduation, which was very humbling. They basically plucked me right out of the graduation. They're like, "Hey, we have a website. You come work with us." I'm like, "I've got student debt. Let's do this." So that was great. But some years later, Simon started working in a whole different department at Full Sail. And by this time, this is probably like, what year was this? This must have been 08, 09, 10, something like that. They had a continuing education for the instructors there. And we came up with this idea of improv as a communication framework. And that was the only time I taught improv. I taught improv to other teachers at Full Sail, which was great.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was like projecting everything I had ever been taught by, my great teachers, Jay Hopkins and James Newport. And I never had her as an instructor, but I learned a ton from Megan White back in the early days of the Traz. And of course, Lyle Moon. Lyle Moon was our director all the way till when I left SAC only so many years ago. I just channeled everything they were teaching me, and I felt like it worked great.
Yeah.
And I loved teaching it as much as I loved doing it because everybody got to play.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful thing to see.
My improv friends are the best friends that I have. They're the friends that I've had the longest. And even though I'm up here, they're the ones that I stay in touch with. And so, if people are, hey, how do I make friends as an adult? Or, what is something I do? To find an improv class and take the class.
Yeah.
Even if you don't plan on sticking around the theater and do anything to the theater, it doesn't have to be about that. It's so much fun to play with other people. And the
Mhm.
people that you play with can and do become fast friends, which I think is just one of the benefits of improv.
I couldn't have said that better myself. That's exactly it. Yeah. Whether you intend to make a profession or a hobby out of it is not connected to the benefit of just doing a class.
Yeah.
It definitely gets you in touch with a playfulness. Like, I mean, so, like I said at the top, I'm a software engineer. I work with other software engineers, very serious people, most of the time. There are exceptions, of course. They have their hobbies, but by and large, software engineers not known for being extroverts. So I constantly find myself to be the one like in meetings, and hopefully I'm not annoying. I don't think I am, but I can't not make jokes and play, but like to everyone's benefit, right? I'm never knocking anything down. I'm never picking on anything,
Yeah.
but I'm always bringing light and some smiles to it. And I feel like that's part of
Yeah. Okay, so you were kind of in the door at SAC,
that. Hmm.
working your way through. At what point does 6 Degrees become a thing for you? And were there other groups before 6 Degrees, or was 6 Degrees the one that kind of stuck?
6 Degrees was, I want to say, when we did, what was the improv? There was like an improv festival that SAC hosted.
A Fool Fest?
Yeah, maybe it was. It was the one where Mission Improbable, they looked like Mission Impossible. They would wear suits and stuff. Their gimmick was fantastic. Let's say it's Fool Fest. It might not have been called that. I don't know. When that festival happened, like other improv groups would come to SAC. And that's when I think me and some of the other performers at the time got exposed to other groups. And it was really wild because, of course, we were in the tiny encapsulated vessel of the SAC world. And like, improv is what SAC is. And it's like, well, no, hold on. Watch this bubble pop and see what these other groups are doing. And they're coming at it from different angles with different attitudes. And that was really cool. And I think that's what led us to that one night at like, I don't know, who knows what time it was, at the Improvathon, which I miss those. God, I would do an Improvathon like in a snap. I remember SAC did improv for like 2 days straight. It was like a 48-hour, like they stayed open all night. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. It was at hour who knows what that we were in the green room, and we started just doing this long form warm up. It was basically the first rudimentary game of 6 degrees where 6 characters know each other through, one to one, A to B, B to C, C to D, D to E, down the line. And then you connect it through narrative in a long form. And we just kind of did that in the green room. So you combine that experience with having seen the other groups come through, and there weren't any other groups around Orlando that we were aware of at the time. And we just said, we need to do this. And it might have been Simon who said, like, we don't have to do this at SAC. We could just do this anywhere. And I think he knew about Austin Coffee and Film, which is where 6 Degrees had its main venue for the longest time. It was just a little coffee shop that was amenable to performers. And yeah, that's how that started. I think that's the genesis story of it. It was like Full Fest times Improvathon divided by Austin Coffee and Film equals 6 Degrees.
I think I have a vague awareness of an Improvathon or, some sort of 24-hour or something or 48-hour, whatever it was. I missed all the Fool Fests, but not by much. Jay, I think, produced those when he was there. And I think when he stopped, maybe there was one more and then they kind of petered out. But there were at least two. I think there was maybe more. And then, of course, there's the one random one on Orange Avenue. I think that was called Fool Fest, but was, I think it counted. They brought some people down, but it wasn't like a true improv festival.
Right.
This is maybe a sidebar. I Googled Austin's the other day because I wondered if it was still around.
Mm-hmm.
And when I Googled it, it was, but it was also moving because they're going to widen the street. So they had to sell. And I don't know if they've coalesced or not.
So I drove past there within the last 3 weeks, and it was still there.
So the building is
like open. No, like open.
Oh,
There's
nice.
People
good.
In there. So I don't think they've gotten the mandate from the city yet to get the heck out.
Oh, good.
I don't know what their plan is. I'm not really following them.
There's still time for like a 6 Degrees reunion at Austin's.
Oh,
to close out.
That's look at you. Write that down. 6 Degrees. That would be wild.
So you all were established, and then you graciously asked me to come aboard, or I forget what the process was exactly, but Austin's was a very fun. It was really the first kind of experimental improv that I would have done. And I mean, we were doing short form as well in 6 Degrees, but it was definitely like, okay, all of those rules that that SAC follows, we're intentionally sometimes, but also they're not there, and we're going to intentionally do things that are outside of that.
Right.
Because we have the freedom to do that. And probably I may have experienced one or two of the actual 6 Degrees forms. I don't know if I was in them or just saw them, but that would have been probably my first exposure to long form of any kind as well.
Oh, wow, no kidding.
Was in that little coffee shop that's still hanging on
somehow.
Nice little spaceship on the sign.
Yeah, is that still there? It was dark when I drove by. That's actually how I knew that they were open, because the lights, they had little Christmas lights and stuff on inside. So
I have very vivid memories of it was an endowment of some kind, but of sitting kind of in the house, and then both James and Kenny, but at different times, being sent out, and then just being idiots in front of that giant window.
Yes.
Behind whoever's setting it up, but in full view of whoever's watching. It was a fun utilization of this. Those of you, which I presume is most everyone, has never been to Austin's. The stage was at the front of the coffee shop. It's kind of almost like a shotgun kind of building.
Yeah.
You walk through the door, and immediately as you walk through the door, on the left would have been the stage, and giant windows that look out to the street.
Yeah.
Behind you. So if you're performing, and no curtains, right?
None.
It's like if there were, they were never closed.
Nope. I don't think there were any curtains.
Whatever was going on stage could be upstaged by any moment by a traffic stop or whatever is going on outside, because the giant windows there.
Fire truck, someone riding by on a bicycle, which this would normally be a detriment, right? You couldn't do like a serious scripted drama, right? With timed beats. Like, no, this is only improv is going to work here, because whatever happens behind you is going to now become part of it. And we did that. I can't pick a time, but I know we did. I know many times something wacky would happen and we would just fold it in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite moments ever is Christian chasing me around the building, and we just kept doing laps and like high stepping, running. It was silliness.
Yeah, it was, but it was joyful silliness as well. I mean,
Truly.
it was a lot of fond memories there at that little coffee shop. I was not gonna lie, I was kind of surprised it was still around. Not because I have anything against Austin's, just because how long do independent coffee shops like that last?
Yeah, and this is on the other side of the pandemic, by the way.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like, I mean, we lost like big businesses through the pandemic. How does Austin's hang out there? I have no
yeah.
idea. So good for them.
Good location must be.
Yeah,
Have you been in other external groups other than 6 Degrees and the History Bluffs?
I have not. It's interesting after 6 degrees and 6 degrees, 6 degrees became no longer purely because a lot of us started growing up and families building. It's amazing how much people in their early to mid 20s can get done because they have like no responsibility
Yeah,
whatsoever. I'm like, well, pay the rent, clock in, clock out, and go do fun things.
yeah,
Right. So I think slowly that started going away, or it became just impossible to, like a lot of the performers in 6 degrees went on to do things like at Disney, Walt Disney World and Universal Studios. And it's like now you're going to do these things for like real money. You don't have time to go do fun stuff for a tip jar in a coffee shop. So
right, yeah,
I think ultimately you could say a lot of different things about, improv, the dynamics of an independent improv group and why they might break up. But honestly, I think that's the core. It's like, look, we just don't have time to do silly stuff for free. We're grown up
yeah.
with, grown up bills and things. So after 6 degrees kind of went away, I had a handful of years where I did not do any performing. And then there's a really cool story I'd love to share with you. The reason I got back with SAC was pretty wild. So my now fiance Laura, I say fiance, we're about to be together for like 15 years, so it's very slow. We'll be married at some point here, but we're common law something at this point. But so years ago, during this time where I was not performing, we were watching, whatever television shows. We found a show called Quick Draw on Hulu. Are you familiar with it?
No.
So it's a Hulu production, and it's produced, directed, and starred in by John Lehr. I think I'm saying his name right, Lehr. So we saw an episode. It's a Western, right? But it's pretty goofy. And I'm like, something's interesting about this show. And then we read like, oh, it's improv. It was one of the first improv shows that actually got some serious stream time. So it turns out John Lehr was the only one who knew where the scene was going, and everybody else just worked around him. And these were like people he had done improv projects and various theatrical projects with. And he had a great cast. Yeah, it's still on Hulu. It's called Quick Draw, and it's a fantastic show. They did 2 seasons, I think. Anyway, the show wasn't that famous. So they were doing, say it was Twitter at the time, they were doing live tweets. The cast, like 3 or 4 cast members were doing live tweets during the airing of each show when it premiered. So Laura and I were tweeting with the cast, right? And they're like, oh, this is great. This is fun. So suddenly we're like Facebook friends with John Lehr and whatever. Turns out there was one October in, I want to say, God, what was it? 2018? Could have been 2018. Could have been 2017. I'm not sure. He was coming to not just Florida, but Orlando to do a charity bowling thing at the like bowling alley near University of Central Florida. All right. So Laura was like, wouldn't that be cool if like he performed at SAC or something? And I'm like, yeah, that would be really cool. But then Laura's like let's make it happen. And I love her for that. So she's like, we're connected. I'll just ask him if he wants to do it. And I'm like, well, I don't know if we can. Like, I hadn't been at SAC for like 2 or 3 years or something at that point. So whatever. She messages him on Facebook and he's like, yeah, I'd love to. That sounds great. Hook it up. And I'm like, wait, so we got this guy, he's not like an A-lister necessarily, but like he's got a TV show. This is not a nobody. I'm like,
Yeah.
So at this point, SAC was, I think, being run by Mike Carr. So I hadn't been at SAC for some years. So I wrote an email to Mike Carr out of the blue, and I'm like, hey man, how's it going? So, and I kind of told him how that happened. I said, is there a possibility? I mean, because I was just thinking for the theater, because I started my whole SAC relationship just giving to the theater, and I never wanted to stop necessarily. So I'm like, this is great. I'll just throw John Lehr at SAC and let them have fun, and we'd come to the show. Mike Carr responds, he said, that sounds like a great idea, but only on one condition: if you perform too on that show. And I was like, what? Okay. So I kid you not, this happened. John Lehr came to town. He came and did a SAC ensemble weekend show. And in the cast was, I know Mike was in the cast. It was me, John Lair, Lyle Moon was in the cast. And we had an awesome show. John Lair actually hadn't done pure improv in a number of years, but he took to it like riding a bike. And it was awesome. The audience loved it. It was a good house. Lots of laughs, ridiculousness. And I've got some fun photos with me and John. Like, I'm performing with one of my TV stars. This is insane. This is so cool. And in the green room after the show, we're posting, and Lyle is like, "So, coming back to SAC?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." so I did it like another 4 or 5 years with SAC, all the way up to the pandemic.
Nice.
And that was really cool.
Yeah.
It was a super fun chapter in my improv life.
Was his 40 Items or Less, was that also one of his shows?
Yes, that is.
Yes. Okay. I do know who that is.
Yep. He's done a couple of those. He was like, going all the way back. He was like the first Geico caveman.
Yeah.
He's got a few things. He's got an ography.
And he was really pushing some of the because I mean, there were shows that existed that I didn't know of, but those are the first shows that were improvised that I knew of.
Yeah.
Was 40 Items or Less. And I did see, I think, a portion of what I'm picturing for Quick Draw was someone is against a tree and a couple people around them, which could be any show anywhere, but I'm pretty certain that was the show.
Yeah.
But even since then, some of the shows that I've become aware of that were kind of improvised and I talked to Dave because Dave was actually on Quick Wits.
Okay.
It changed its name at some point, and that was done in both LA and Chicago, but it was half improv. It was a show that was rehearsed that was intended to look improvised, and an odd kind of beast.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you got to do a little bit of cheating, but
yeah. Especially, I mean, TV is hard because even the Who's Line people are like, they do pickups, right? They're like, Ryan, can you sing the last bit of the hoedown over again so we can have a different end or whatever?
Yeah.
So,
have you been to a taping? 'Cause I've never been to a taping.
I have not. I've just heard stories.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
So that's really cool. I'm sure that even Dropout wouldn't be what Dropout is if he hadn't have done what he did. But yeah, that's an amazing thing that to be able to do that. I'm so happy that all came together because I'm also very familiar with sometimes the that's great, but we can't.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of a response that comes from not just SAC but any theater that
right.
Depending on when and who. But that's amazing.
That's my longer answer to your question. Did I do any other groups after 6 Degrees? So it was basically, I did a bunch of SAC in parallel with 6 Degrees, and then 6 Degrees stopped, and then I left SAC for a while. Then I went back to SAC for a while, and then the pandemic happened, and then it's History Bluffs, and now I'm here.
Yeah.
And that's the TLDR of my improv career, my improv stage career. Throw in, of course, the Star Wars Fringe Festival show that I did with Simon back in, twice, 2003 and 2012. So
nice. And that was improvised?
It was not improvised, but that
okay, just performance
wise. That was I would be remiss not to cite that in the whole narrative arc of 2000 to here.
Yeah.
So 25 years, 26. Oh, it's 2026. Oh, geez.
Yeah.
20. Yeah.
And you never did. I know. I don't know for certain who did, but I feel like there were some people that were in that Gen S Lab Rat sort of crucible when we were there that also ended up doing Mamas.
Oh, right.
At some point, but did you ever venture over there?
No, I mean, I saw a couple shows, went to support, but I never jumped in there. Steve Grogan, he was doing a show. It was adjacent to Mamas. It was in the same building, and I did a couple shows with them. But it was just, at the time, it was a lot of commute during a bad traffic time in Orlando, and it was just not feasible for me to stick with it. But I did do a handful of shows over there in the Mamas building, but not as part of Mamas Cafe.
Well, did they have they were at Sleuths for a long time, right?
Yeah. I wish I could remember the name of the performing group. This is going back some years. This is probably like 2012, 13, 14. So what the heck? It started with an S. Oh, Steve would kick me in the shin for not remembering the name of this. It was fun though. Yeah, it was a small crew. It was like 4 or 5 performers. And it was kind of like, it was short form improv, but with reintroduced characters. It was like, okay, we're gonna do that scene with those characters now again. So it was returns to, so it had a structure to it. It wasn't like wide open greenfield improv.
Yeah.
It was like, we're gonna do this, I'm just making this up, but like, okay, we're gonna do the thing with the 2 truck drivers. Okay, and then we're gonna do the restaurant scene, and then we're gonna do the proverb monologue, and then so it was like, and we'll do all this in 30 minutes, and that's the show. and
Okay.
they would kind of rotate the cast through the different things. So it was structured, but improv, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. But not like, it wasn't just like a improvised full length play sort of a thing like
No.
that was genre specific or anything like
Nope,
that.
it had freedom, but it would rehash the characters so that and I think they were trying to develop, because I think it was kind of like a regular audience, or not half. I mean, it was over at Icon Park, so you were getting half tourists, half locals. But for the locals that would come back, I think they were trying to build following, so there would be familiar stories and characters that.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sleuths was when Mamas would perform at Sleuths. That wasn't that down on iDrive?
Yeah, I drive. I called it Icon Park. That's the newer. When did you leave town? You probably don't remember it being called Icon Park. Icon Park is basically where the Orlando Eye is, which is right there. It's next to the Mama's building.
Yes.
But then they built like a bunch of restaurants and bars, and they just really built that place up. And that was called Icon Park. Take the family to Icon Park, not Disney World.
Yeah.
Go to Icon Park. Give us your money.
Yeah, I'd say as long as there's still a few T-shirt shops around, then it'll feel like home.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely some T-shirt shops.
That's kind of the conundrum of Orlando, though, right? Is the not the T-shirt shops, T-shirt shops, but that so SAC is downtown, and they really like go for local audience,
right?
And really anything down between wherever iDrive would start, like Kirkman and wherever that last hotel is or the conference center is.
Yeah.
Is really catering to tourists.
Right.
So to get locals down there is a little bit more of a pain. I think SAC would be fine if tourists were to come up, but getting tourists to come up to downtown is also a bit of a pain.
Yeah, right.
It's a lot of people and just weirdly segmented.
Yeah, I'm sure you know the term bar prov, right? Where so there's improv and there's bar prov, where you can kind of lower your common denominator to poop jokes or whatever, whatever to make people who are drinking laugh. It's easier.
Yeah,
I feel like there's another category, and that's tourist prov, and I believe that is a form of improv, or really any show, but improv specifically, because improv can be different every time, or will be different every time, and you can innovate every single show. It's not the same show every time. However, when you know that your entire audience is completely transient, they're not coming back, you can do the same show every Friday. You can pull the same jokes. And I feel like that has to weaken it. That must weaken or dilute the incentive to push and be creative and innovative. When you like, let's say, okay, we're recording this right now. It's Friday. So like, let's say we're taking the stage and for a bunch of tourists, and you know that last Friday you did a thing and it killed the audience. Why would you not do that? Because you know that it's a whole new theater full of people.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like when you're in a local theater, you're going to have your regulars, and you can't pull that crap. You got to be better than that.
Yeah.
So I feel like tourist prov is a thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I've told this story before, but Kayla and I went to visit Chicago. We went and saw Comedy Sports up there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we came back and we were talking about in the green room, and David Charles did Comedy Sports when he was at school in Chicago.
Okay.
And he said, "Oh, did they play 5 things?" And we said, "Yeah." And he said, "Was one of them bungee jumping off the Eiffel Tower into some sort of flavor of Jello?"
Oh, no.
And we were like, yes.
Oh, no.
Yes, as a matter of fact, it was.
No.
And that's what I equate that to. I was like, because Comedy Sports in Chicago is getting Chicago tourists
right
in there. So I'm also thinking, when I worked at the theme park, I was pushed to Talking Trash Can for a year, and I had my bits. And if you go out there and you're fighting and you're pulling teeth, you fall back on your bits.
Right.
It's something you can fall back on, and you're glad that you have them. And I don't feel bad about you can't do it anymore because they've changed so many things. But it was like, hey, just go on Space Mountain 3 times, and you can ride all the mountains first. Have a taco, and then you can turn it into Big Thunder Mountain, and then have a big drink, and you can turn it into Splash Mountain, or phrased a little bit better at the time. But
yeah.
Those things that you just have, like, okay, these, like you said, these people are never going to see me again, or it'll be another performer if they do.
Right.
And so I think that must have been what was going on there. And I think that, you can fall into, we could fall into, I remember having a conversation with Greg, and we were talking to each other about having made a conscious decision of never wanting to do the same thing on stage.
Mm.
It was tempting sometimes, because then something would get teed up and you're like, oh, this is very familiar. The thing that we did last time, the thing I did last time really, really landed, but I'm going to make a concerted effort to not do that thing, to try to push out of that boundaries. push beyond those boundaries. But yeah, it's got to be even more of a temptation when these people, I'm never going to see them again. Half of them are Brazilian,
right,
and don't understand me anyway.
That feels like a random joke to anyone who doesn't live in Orlando and go to the theme parks, but it is real. There was one time, for some reason, Brazilian tourists, there's a huge amount of them. Actually, going back to Steve Grogan, he was working as a server at the NASCAR cafe at City Walk, Universal City Walk, for a while, and he had this crazy idea that he proposed to his manager that he and somebody else could dress up as a pit crew and try to use how the pit crew will try to wave drivers into the pit.
Yeah.
Well, he wanted to set up cones and actually wave people into the restaurant during slow times. And he got me to do this with him. So I actually did that. And sure enough, there are photos out there, many of Steve and I posing with these huge groups of Brazilian tourists. So it's real. I never worked like a full-time at the theme parks like many of our fellow performers did. But even that little tiny stint I did with him at the NASCAR cafe, I'm like, why are there so many Brazilian tourists? It's amazing.
This is gone as well. But when one of my first jobs down there was working at a miniature golf course in Lake Buena Vista, Pirates Cove.
Oh, wow.
It was down past the Goodings, which is probably also not there because they've changed some off ramps and stuff, and all of that's gone. The land that we were on was right next to the Hooters, which is still there, and we would have people coming up. And for some reason, the woman that I worked with said it was mostly Scots for some reason would come, but other people would not everyone would come in trying to get to Hooters, but you couldn't get there from our parking lot, even though we were right next to each other. You had to drive a quarter of a mile.
Oh, classic Orlando.
Or like half a mile, yeah, to get there. But anyway, she could tell you based on who was coming in, the tourists that were coming in, what time of year it was. She had everyone's holiday schedule memorized.
Oh my God.
And it was oh, yep. So next week we'll be getting people from the Middle East. The week after that, we'll be getting people from she just knew all of it because she'd been working there for so long and
right.
And knew when the holidays were because that's when people would show up.
It's like a clock. I actually, right now, I have a annual pass to Disney World, and last night I was there. Real true story. And I told Laura on the way out, I said, I don't know what it was. We were just talking about oh yeah, it's probably not a lot of people there because we just had the holidays and so it's probably a little bit low. I was like, yeah, but I said probably all the British tourists are there though. And she was like, really? I'm like, yeah, probably. Sure enough, we're on Main Street, USA, right in front of the castle, and there's a family trying to do this. There's 10 of them, and they're trying to do a selfie. And Laura's like, I got you. Let me help you out. And she takes the photo, and sure enough, she goes, thank you, love. I'm like, I told you. Like clockwork. It's their schedule. That's their time.
I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, it was okay, winter break, summer break. That's when we'd go to visit my grandparents in Iowa or wherever.
Yeah.
We'd make the trek or the summer vacation, or Cedar Point was where we would go because that was closest. So we'd go to Cedar Point every now and again. So,
oh, cool.
Not as cool then as it is now, I think, but,
well, I grew up in Maine. We had Funtown, USA in Saco, Maine, right next to Jolly John's car dealership. If I'm not jolly, if you're not happy, I'm not jolly.
Was that his actual story?
Yes, it was. And so I hope that some Mainer out there hears that.
Do you remember, I don't know if they're still around, but at one point in Orlando, there was a car, I would say commercial.
Oh, you're talking about Family Auto Mart.
Family Auto Mart. Yes, I am.
Yes, I remember. I was here. I could have missed it. If I'd come a few years later, I'd have missed it. I caught it in the end. Now, my Laura, she grew up here. She's an East Orlando native. So she grew up with Family Auto Mart. So she has stories that I can't even compare to. But yeah.
Oh, I think I caught them once. And the only thing I can compare it to for Northerners, if there's Northerners listening, would be like a Red Green show that's trying to sell you cars. It was so bizarre. And that between that and then if during their giant commercial, if a Appliance Direct commercial were to come on during their commercial, that would just be
that's gold.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do better than that.
That's an all-star.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, back to improv. Although Family Auto Mart, I can't imagine that was entirely scripted.
It couldn't have been. I hope not.
Other than the cartwheels. So in your experience, Adam, what is the most shocking thing you've seen or done on stage?
I had a gem moment. actually. The all-time funniest thing that's ever happened to me in an improv scene goes to a speak in one voice interview. I wish I could remember who was interviewing, but I was speaking in one voice with Simon McDonald, which we share a brain anyway. Like, I think we're quantumly entangled. We're very different people, but somehow when you get us going, like, we meld. And we were doing this. We were on it. It was like one of those speak in one voices where we're just like, blah, 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 just nailing it. And the interviewer says like something like, how do you relax? And we're like, well, we said something like, oh, we find this Zen moment. And we were both picturing like, like maybe a Buddhist monk, like sitting cross-legged, right? And so we both instinctively took our outer legs and lifted them. Now, when you see that on stage as a speak in one voice where you're standing next to each other, if both people take their outer legs and lift them to cross them, you're essentially demonstrating you're floating. And so we instantly had this discovery that we were floating. And we just lost it. I mean, we couldn't hold back. We were laughing. I mean, we kept the scene kept going, but it had to have been the most beautiful gift I've ever seen, when we didn't realize what we were doing, but then we saw we had given ourselves this gift of we are levitating and we are at Zen. And of course, the interviewer, I think it was, I think they were just like, oh, you are so at Zen. Of course they worked with it too. I feel like that's one of the most memorable magical moments, and I love to use that one because that wasn't even like offer. Like, we didn't even offer that. That was a mistake. That was a complete unintentional gift. And we did nothing but embrace it and play with it. And it deepened that scene like times 10.
Yeah.
And that's improv, man. That's improv in a nutshell. How can you beat that with a script?
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, it's fun as an audience member to be surprised, but it's both as an audience member and a cast member when you're surprising or being surprised by the people you're playing with.
Yeah.
I mean, that's even more enjoyable for the audience to be because then you're experiencing something that is lightning in a bottle. It's like, how does that happen? You're never going to be able to duplicate that. You couldn't,
Right.
If you tried to do that again, it's not going to have that
It
same
wouldn't.
sort of.
It's the discovery.
Yeah.
It's the discovery. Actually, this is exactly why I am extremely critical of sequel movies. No, seriously, like, let's take any movie. Let's just take the Michael Bay Transformers franchise, right? The first movie, I don't care. I'm a huge Transformers fan. I'm wearing a Transformers shirt. The first movie, whether you like it or hate it, there was a discovery, right, of the humans like being like, oh my God, this is just giant robots. They're from outer space and they transform. And this is amazing. And you get to see Optimus Prime for the first time on screen, right? Then they made like 5 more of these things. And that discovery's gone. There is no first time again for seeing Optimus Prime transform. Okay. And that's I think what makes improv beautiful is every single time is a discovery. You're seeing something for the very first time and for the very last time.
Yeah.
It might be a stinker. At least half the time it could be. So, but that is absolutely the reason it's a jewel. It's discovery.
Yeah. I agree with you on both counts. I'm right now taking a directing class, driving to Chicago on Wednesdays to take a directing class from Norm Holly, who's a veteran show director at Second City.
Yeah, that's great.
And he's at Home Comedy Theater now, but so we improvised a thing and he's going to have us direct a thing. And so for the part of their process is using improv to write the sketch. So they would do the improv and then we'd come back if something worked really well and we'd improvise it again. So I just experienced that actually for the first time this last Wednesday because it was our second time around. And it's like, where a director was like, okay, this scene that you did last week, we're going to tweak it a little bit. And Norm was like, yeah, the 2-person thing is the hardest and also the most fun. And I tell you what, I had heard that improvising the scene the second time always was terrible. And it's not necessarily terrible, but definitely because you're trying to capture that something that was just inherent to the first one because of the discovery, like you say, you got to kind of let that go and figure out something else in terms of what you're going to write on paper, because that aspect of it, it can't be recreated.
Yeah. And even if you could, you wouldn't have the same response to it.
Yeah.
But then your response to it is part of it, right?
Yeah, you can't anticipate it and have it be the same.
Right.
in how you respond, which is why the tourist prov thing that you were talking about is like, yeah, that's why who wants to really do that? I mean, that's fine if that's like, well, this is the job. I'm getting paid X amount of dollars. And I wonder if that's some of the weirdness with Comedy Warehouse wasn't we have to deliver. We have to do this.
Right.
I've got my bits. I'm going to do them because this is a tourist audience. And you lose a little something of
Yeah.
of the special.
I forgot about Comedy Warehouse. Right after I graduated Full Sail in 2000, I was going to Pleasure Island all the time, which for people who are listening, Pleasure Island was an adult entertainment section of downtown Disney, which is now called Disney Springs. It's not one of their theme parks you don't pay entrance to, but Pleasure Island would open at like 7:30 p.m. or 8 p.m. and it was gated, it was ticketed. It was cheap. It was like $35 to get in or $85 for an annual pass. And there were 8 nightclubs, including Comedy Warehouse. And Comedy Warehouse did, I think, 3 shows that were pure improv comedy with a pianist,
Yeah.
stage show, drink service, like the whole 9. And it was awesome. And actually, that would have been right in line with when I first saw my first SAC show. It was about the same time I was going to Pleasure Island. And I remember going into, I'm like, oh, Comedy Warehouse, that looks fun. What's this? I'm like, oh my God, it's just like SAC, but a little more touristy.
Yeah. Yes. But amazing. I was lucky enough to see Comedy Warehouse and also Adventurers Club, to experience Adventurers Club.
Yep.
When those were still around. And I'm saddened that they're no longer there because I feel like they were amazing, even if they were different than than SAC.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to walk through Disney Springs, honestly. Every time I walk through, I think I know the people I'm with because I'm like, oh, there's where 8 Tracks used to be. And this is where they would do the Near show every night. I just sound like a sad sap, whatever.
When I walk through, I'm like, oh, I wonder if there's anything left of the stage I think Adventurers Club was completely razed, right? That building.
Yeah.
But on the Comedy Warehouse side, I'm like, okay, it could still be in there somewhere. Parts of it could still be hidden behind
Yeah,
a wall.
like the elephant's foot in Chernobyl. There's still part of it in there. I don't know why I went with Chernobyl. It's the only thing I could think of that is like a small piece is left.
I was thinking of the other thing I think of is the singing food things at Epcot that were I forget what pavilion they were, but it was part of
the Land and Sea, or I don't know.
But I think I saw one of the last times that happened, and then the next time I went like, oh yeah, I mean, it would have been years later, and I was like at Epcot, I was like, oh yeah, aren't there like singing and talking like food items in? And they're like, what?
Yeah. Well, these are shows, they capture our heart. They're part of, yeah. Notice how, like, I mean, I said 8 Tracks, but I mean that was not nearly as dear as Comedy Warehouse and Adventurers Club, because those were performances they captured a part of us, right? Or at least you and I as performers. I don't know if that everybody relates to that. I'm like, yeah, of course I miss the dance clubs, but like there's other dance clubs, but there will never be another Comedy Warehouse or another Adventurers Club, like those, it's the performances that spoke to us and connected us to that place in that time. That's powerful, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree. That's it for part 1 of my interview with Adam. Come back next time to hear his answers to my Proustian questionnaire and check out the Patreon for bonus content. Thanks for listening to Improv Autopsy.